Hello, my name is Reshama Shaikh, and I am excited to be here to give a keynote at Pi Gotham, one of my favorite conferences. My talk is entitled, Let's Talk Community. I'm a statistician by training, and I run Data Umbrella, which is a community for underrepresented persons in data science, and we organize data science events for the community. I'm also a member of the Scikit-learn and PyMC teams, and I am a New Yorker, and so this conference is especially special. You can find me at Reshama S on Twitter, LinkedIn, and GitHub. A little bit about my community work. For 5 years, from 2015 to 2020, I was a very active contributor to a women's nonprofit. In 2019, I founded Data Umbrella. And since then, I have become a Scikit-learn and PyMC contributor, both Python libraries, and so much more in terms of working groups, conference organizing, NYC Pi Ladies, and other commitments. Data Umbrella is a global community for underrepresented persons in data science. We've organized open source sprints, and we have resources for the community. We welcome all levels, beginners and experts. I am a huge Pi Gotham fan. I attended my first Pi Gotham in 2014, so it's almost 10 years ago. And, thanks to a generous scholarship, I was just finished my MBA at the time, so I really appreciated it. In 2016 was the first time I spoke at Pi Gotham, and it was actually the first time I ever gave a conference talk. So Pi Gotham is really, really special. And I can't believe that I'm here in 2023 as a keynote speaker. This talk is based on my personal community experience, and in addition, I had community interviews with Beryl Kanali, Marietta Wijaya, and Shanina Bellini Saibine. And so I'm going to take some of my experience as well as what I've learned from my interviews with these three amazing women. So a little bit about Beryl. She is based in Nairobi, Kenya. She's a master's student in statistics. She's a Data Umbrella community manager. She recently completed the Outreachy internship for the Bioconductor project, and she is a recurring member of the PyMC community as well. Her interview, there's a video available on the Data Umbrella YouTube as well as a full transcript. Marietta Wijaya, who is a Python core developer. She is based in Canada. She's also, amongst many, many commitments that she has, she's a Pi Ladies Global Advisor. She is an organizer for Pi Ladies Vancouver. She's the co-founder of Pi Cascades. She's the PyCon US chair for 2023 and 2024, and she comes with a breadth of experience to share. And Yanina, or also Shanina, is currently the R OpenSci community manager. She is an R Ladies project lead. She's the co-founder of Metadocencia and Latin R, and Carpetrice Executive Council, and there's a really long list of her other contributions to the community as well. Again, there's a video of my interview with her as well as a full transcript. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to sort of discuss these items, like what is community, why is it important, and what makes a community? What are the challenges that organizers / contributors face from their perspective? And what is the future of communities post-COVID? So what is community? How do we define it? I spoke to Beryl, Marietta, and Shanina, and one of the common themes was community is a place where I feel like I belong. That was the most recurring theme. It's also, sharing space where people have the same interests and goals as you. It's a place to learn and mentor. And Shanina says, for me, belonging is important, and that you feel important. You feel that people care about you, and you grow as a professional, where you can go not only to learn, but to share. I'm going to discuss a little bit about loneliness. The U.S. Surgeon General issued a report, and in this report he says, loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. It harms both individual and societal health. It is associated with a greater risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. It goes on to say that the impact of being socially disconnected is similar to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. And so, being connected and being part of a community is very important, particularly post-COVID. This is from the report. And the suggestion is each of us can start now in our own lives by strengthening our connections and relationships. So the benefits of community, as this report by the U.S. Surgeon General says, connections, primarily it's like the health, And other benefits of community is meeting people, building relationships, building a social and professional network. It's having the potential for employment opportunities through that network. It provides education and training. It's a place to have fun. For contributors, it's having, not just contributors, for people who participate, having a positive impact in the world. And through contributing, learning to work together and mentor and learn from others, and there's many other benefits. There are also a lot of challenges that are faced by, I'm going to call them community organizers or community managers or volunteers. One of them is sustainability. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. Volunteers, attracting and retaining, burnout, sponsorship. Resources, whether it's financial or social or in terms of documentation, and inclusion. Something that we saw from the pandemic is making a conscious effort to include all the people through various geographical regions and time zones, but it also poses a lot of challenges to do that. So to volunteers, the things that we've learned is that attracting and retaining volunteers is a challenge. I'm sort of speaking about the communities that are run on volunteer labor. In terms of getting people involved, sometimes people need to be asked. There are people who want to be involved, but they aren't always familiar with the path to becoming involved. For us as volunteers and contributors, recognizing that there are short-term and long-term volunteers, that it's important to ask and take feedback from the community, that hosting events across various time zones can be challenging, that internet access also varies by time zone, that the platforms that participants can access that are optimal for them also vary. And documentation helps a lot in terms of onboarding volunteers. So one of the challenges that I mentioned previously is governance and accountability. When there's no governance or nuclear leadership, when you say everybody is equal, everybody does the same thing, it ends up being nobody's doing it and nobody's making decisions. And having a governance model, having a leader, either one person, that will be important, and this is shared by Marietta. Another community challenge is, I use the word toxicity, but people not treating other people well. And there are some examples from the press to share here. One of them is Girl Develop It, Black Girls Code, and what others? There may be others as well. This was in the press. Back in 2018, Girl Develop It was at the time 67 meetup groups where they had workshops in tech topics, and they really came under a lot of there was a lot of criticism for a failure to address several issues around race and inclusivity at both the chapter and HQ level. And in fact, many chapter leaders stepped down, and many of those chapters closed. They're still going, but they lost a lot of people. Another one is Black Girls Code, and in December of 2021, the founder was put on administrative leave for creating a toxic work environment. And about a year ago, a lawsuit was also filed against the founder. And so, something to consider is how many other situations exist in communities that are not public and cause organizers or volunteers to leave. So, let's talk a little bit about why do organizers leave communities? One of the main reasons is time. They don't have the time to contribute to the community. Another major reason is disagreements over how the community is run. And this also goes back to a little bit towards the governance issues. Sometimes people outgrow the community. They've learned some skills and they want to move on and do something, which is related to cyclical. Sometimes, a commitment, an involvement has its cycle and it's time to move on and do something else. Sometimes it's, personality differences such as toxic leaders or toxic members. And sometimes it's burnout. There's volunteer labor is limited and people burn out. And so, Yanina or Shani, there's various ways to say her name. Sometimes you vote with your feet, right? You can also be part of things that already exist in line with your values, with your way of work, and what you want to create in this world. So there are options when a community doesn't work for some people. Another challenge that we face is managing expectations and offboarding volunteers. A lot of times people, reach out to volunteer because they're interested in the fields such as Python or R or data science. And then they realize that a lot of the work is administrative and it's not so technical. And they sort of had a different expectation of what that experience would be. The other thing is there's no official agreement to contribute. And so sometimes organic relationships build over time where someone is involved a little bit and then grows on to become more and more involved. It helps to have some fixed term commitments to address this. Another challenge, is governance. Because a lot of communities grow organically, there isn't always a governance structure in the beginning, and it's too small to have an official one. And then by the time it grows, that also makes it a challenge. And so, communities start small. It's wonderful that it grows, and then it's too small for a formal governance plan, and it has to grow with it. And that transition can be difficult, but it's also possible. So some tips for potential, future contributors, volunteers, is that you don't need to be an expert in the area to contribute. Language skills, don't be intimidated on your language level. You can start by making very small contributions. You don't need to be like a famous person, like a Python core developer to contribute. Anybody can contribute, and any contribution is greatly appreciated. Be persistent on offering your help. A lot of times the leaders of the communities are very busy. So if you're really interested, keep following up. And, something that's super important is building trust with the current contributors of the community, which is, show up when you say you would and doing what you said you would. I'd like to share a few examples of communities that are no longer existing. And it's very, very sad. Right Speak Code is, their mission was to promote visibility and leadership of technologists with marginalized genders through peer-led professional development. They had 6 chapters throughout the United States. They were very impactful. They had, they had workshops on speaking, writing and coding, and their last annual conference was in August of 2019, which is 4 years ago. They recently, in July, issued a statement that said, after giving a lot of time and consideration for the sustainability of the organization, we have decided to dissolve Right Speak Code by December of 2023. They say we all know the effort it takes a community running, let alone a multi-state operating nonprofit. And although the mission continues to be light, we no longer have the capacity to sustain the organization, and that is quite sad. Global Diversity CFP Day, their last online conference was February 2021, so almost 2.5 years ago. They have done annual conferences, and while they haven't had a conference since, and it's unclear that they will, they have a lot of resources on their YouTube on writing CFPs, finding a topic, preparing for your talk. The goal of that is to, focus on underrepresented persons in tech and show them, mentor them on how to submit their first CFP talk or second. Front-End Foxes is a workshop to teach women about front-end technologists. And the founder says, Another one, folks, our communities are really struggling. I did the same thing with Front End Foxes. It's too hard to run a nonprofit without enough support. So, to summarize the risks, there is volunteer burnout and sustainability. It would be nice to always helpful to have funding, governance. Communities go organically. Everything can't be defined at the start. Outcomes, measuring impact is really difficult. We can measure in numbers in terms of how many people attend events, but the other impact that comes, all the benefits of being part of a community, the networking, the social, all of that, it's not measurable. The skill sets, a lot of the people who run the communities, they organize impactful events, but they don't have experience in marketing or business people or grant writing to keep the community sustainable. And funding, even if funding is available, which is quite rare, infrastructure for receiving money isn't always there. How do we receive the money? How do they manage it? All of that is, for organically growing communities, it's not a simple thing. And so I leave you with these thoughts, which is an overlooked casualty of the pandemic communities in the Pi Data is the Pi Data ecosystem. The number of meetup groups, communities that have become inactive continues to grow. How long will it take to recover? Will it ever recur to baseline? What will be the long-term impact? And so, these are questions that I don't have answers to, but something that we can think about as a community. Like, what is the future of communities? Will we return to pre-pandemic levels ever? And if we do, how long would that take? How can we measure the impact of the non-present communities, especially when we couldn't measure the impact of communities before? Numbers are one way, but there's other benefits that are hard to measure. You can connect with Data Umbrella. We are on all social media platforms at Data Umbrella. Meetup is a place to go for upcoming events. Our YouTube has our recent events, and we're on Twitter and LinkedIn at Data Umbrella. I want to thank all the organizers and volunteers that make Pi Gotham happen. I know it's a real effort and contribution, and it is greatly appreciated.